So two things we're going to announce tonight. One is an update on the shooting from last night, and I have Chief Medina here, Chief Weisler from the State Police, and then we have our Deputy Chief and Commander, Deputy Chief Cecily Barker and Commander Jose Villegas, to talk about both these cases. So the one's the update to last night. We are waiting for a warrant on that, so we'll get that out as soon as we get that. And then the other one is the arrests related to Froylan Villegas from the shooting from earlier this month. And starting with that, I do want to read something from the mayor for the record. The chief and I personally talked with Froylan's family about our commitment to track down and jail those responsible for this terrible act. We also asked everyone in our city to help, and today APD demonstrated what they have over the last year. If you commit a homicide in our town, we will find you, arrest you, demand full justice for victims in our community. So Chief can talk a little bit about that, about them visiting with the family, but we do want to announce these arrests tonight. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Medina.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. We just wanted to announce that we have made 2 arrests in the homicide that I think affected the entire city. Jose Romero and Nathan Garley have been arrested. They're in the process of being interviewed, and I believe one of them was going to be checked for his back was had some kind of back pain or something. Probably didn't want to go to jail, more than likely. So as soon as these individuals clear, they will be attempted to be interviewed by officers, and we'll take them out to the detention center. First of all, I want to thank Detective Small from the Albuquerque Police Department. 2 weeks ago, 1 day ago, when this incident occurred, I contacted Commander Vega at the scene, and he assured me that he had a top-level team. I think our homicide team has shown time and time again that there's almost nothing they can't solve when they have the time and they put the effort into it. And he assured me that to give them a couple weeks, and sure enough, a couple weeks and 1 day later, they were able to take these individuals into custody. I also want to thank our investigative support unit. They have been looking for these individuals nonstop. We had an idea of who they could be early on in the investigation, and the reason that came to be is the city of Albuquerque was great. We had so many Crime Stopper tips after that initial announcement. Anybody who knew an individual who possibly could be driving a car like that was horrified by the magnitude of violence that could occur. Unfortunately, what we've learned is this was not a road rage incident. Initially we get information, and that information sometimes changes during the course of investigation. This was a case of mistaken identity. The individuals who were arrested were involved in a dispute with others at Isotope Stadium. The individuals that they were involved in a dispute with drove a white 4-door Dodge pickup truck. And we will release photos at a certain point in time showing the victim's truck actually driving by the intended victim's truck. And it is our belief that these cowards mixed up the 2 vehicles and shot into the wrong vehicle, taking the life of a young man. Our detectives have been working on this case for several days. There has been numerous warrants that have been requested. Mr. Romero was taken into custody in front of an Allsups in the city of Albuquerque. I didn't get the exact Allsups. He was armed at the time, and we are processing that scene. A second male was taken into custody also with him. That individual was also armed. And Mr. Garley was taken into custody I think the 13th of September. And State Police Chief will talk a little bit about that, but that individual was coming back towards the state of New Mexico. And that individual was actually in custody, and I think it shows time and time again that sometimes we don't have all the pieces of the puzzle, but eventually we're able to use our partnerships and our communications with other agencies to help further our investigations. Kind of like the best way I could explain that is like the Sheriff's Department when they had pulled over a car during the political shootings. A gun had sat in, evidence was tagged in there that nobody knew what its relationship was to any of those crimes. And then a short time later, a great traffic stop leads us to evidence that helps us push a case forward, and I'll let the chief talk about that. But like I said, a lot of thank yous. One about a year and a half ago, I reached out to Commander Vega to come out of retirement. Since that time, our homicide team has a 94.5% clearance rate last year. This year they're close to 90%. And this year we're looking at about a 20% reduction in crime, in homicides. They're doing great work, over 200 individuals arrested. And I couldn't thank Commander Vega enough for his leadership and his hard work in making sure that he pushes those detectives to do everything they can day in and day out to bring justice to families. To the families impacted, we had one young man who lost his life. We had a woman in her early 20s whose life has changed forever. Our hearts still go out to both of you. Our deepest condolences, and we hope that we could get this case to the point where we get a strong conviction and that these individuals serve the rest of their life in prison. We're also looking, I've already spoken to the United States Attorney, if there's any way that we could get a federal hook into any of these individuals, we will make sure that federally we charge them and that they face consequences in every court possible for their actions and the way that they've changed a family forever. With that, Troy.
Thank you, Chief. You all might be wondering why State Police is here. So the reason that we're here is Mr. Garley did not, after being involved in this shooting, his criminal activity did not stop there. He continued his criminal ways. He went off to Arizona, it appears, for a couple days, and then ran into one of my officers on September the 13th, headed back from the Phoenix area. One of my officers in the Grants area conducted a traffic stop. His training experience, he could tell that there was something else going on besides just a traffic stop. He investigated further, conducted a search of the vehicle, and located approximately 22 pounds of fentanyl pills, approximately 100,000 fentanyl tablets. That officer, he's a task force officer with the Homeland Security Investigations, who we work a lot of these smuggling type cases with. He contacted Homeland Security Investigations to come out and assist with the investigation. Over the course of them assisting with the investigation, it was adopted for federal prosecution, and then further investigation by Homeland Security investigators determined through searches of the phones of the two occupants. There was a female with him, with Mr. Garley as well. Through the search of their phones, was able to determine that they had been involved and had relations to individuals that were involved in this shooting, at which time Homeland Security Investigations reached out to APD and shared that information so that we could bring this case to a close. I want to point out, so not only did Mr. Garley murder an 11-year-old and paralyze another individual and then flee the state after that cowardly act, he then, when he decides to come back, brings 100,000 fentanyl tablets of poison back, intended to come back to this community. Very likely could have killed somebody else if he would have been allowed to do so. I think it's critically important that we emphasize that. Obviously, there's no shame, no deterrent by what had happened before. He continued his criminal ways. We saw from the other two individuals that were apprehended tonight. They were apparently still involved in criminal activity. The entire situation and the ongoing disregard for the safety of other individuals is disgusting. Makes me sick to my stomach. I appreciate APD. They did the bulk of the effort in this, but this is a kind of joint collaboration. Why it's so important that agencies work together. A lot of times we each have a piece of the puzzle, and we can't see the entire thing until we put all the pieces together. That's why it's imperative that we work together, that we work with our partners at APD, that we work with our partners at Homeland Security Investigation and all the other agencies in the area, so that we can bring cases like this to a swift conclusion and hope to prevent further victims from suffering. That's all I have, Chief.
I'm Cecily Barker. I'm the Deputy Chief of the Investigative Bureau, and I just want to add to what Chief said and thank our detectives for the hard work that they have done over the last 2 weeks. I also want to thank our digital intelligence team, who played a huge role in helping us identify and get information that led to these arrests today. Our investigative services team, like Chief said, has done a great job in locating these individuals and taking them safely into custody today. We have a lot of work to do on this case, so we still encourage anybody with information to report that to Crime Stoppers. We also want to thank Crime Stoppers and the Board of Directors for their help in this, and the community that came together, as well as the media who provided this information out. So we thank each one of you. Again, our condolences to the family, and we will continue to work hard on this case until it comes to an end. So thank you.
Just a little bit of clarification on how this unfolded. So the mistaken identity happened because the individuals who perpetrated this murder were targeting a white Dodge pickup truck. And the Villegas family was also in a very similar 2019 white Dodge pickup truck. Slightly different, but they look almost exactly alike. I'll send a picture that we have as part of evidence that shows the two trucks actually in the parking lot at Lobo Stadium at one point, where the one truck was driving by the other truck, and it just was mistaken identity. They were looking for this truck, and the other truck pulled out first, and that's who they went and fired the rounds at. I don't know if anyone else wants to talk about the other case too. The first case from last night, the shooting. It looks like the charges are going to be filed against the mother. It is a 7-year-old boy, and our last understanding is he still is alive, but is in very critical condition at the hospital. The mother apparently fired a round at the boyfriend. There was some sort of domestic violence incident. Unfortunately, the round went through his leg and impacted the child, and that's when the child was critically injured. So just a real tragedy in that case as well. This 7-year-old was put in harm's way, and our detectives have been working all day with the district attorney's office to determine whether charges should be filed. They did determine that the mother will face some charges, and as soon as we get that, we'll relay them to you.
You know, in closing, before we go to questions, I just want to reiterate what the chief said about partnerships. It is imperative that we always work together. I think that's one of the prides that we've brought to the city over the past few years, and one of the things that I'm committed to as a chief is that we work with our partnerships. You know, for years, I've said it, since 2017, when I returned, like I've always said, the New Mexico State Police, I thank you because you are our greatest partner through thick and thin. When other agencies have shied away from us because of our consent decree and our settlement agreement, we knew that we always had their support. And one of their officers in Grants helped to bring pieces to the puzzle for us to be able to solve this. And with that, we'll take any questions that you may have.
At what point did any department decide that these were the two suspects?
You know, we had an early indication about 36 hours into this investigation. As we started to see Crime Stopper tips come in, I actually told Commander Vega, I'm going to bet money that Mr. Jose Romero is going to be your suspect. And 2 weeks later, I reminded him a little bit earlier that I called this 36 hours after the shooting happened, and we had the first Crime Stopper tips.
Chief, can you kind of speak to the level of frustration that law enforcement might be going through when they're seeing so many kids being killed by firearms, not just in the community, but across the country?
You know, this is a horrible incident. I went out that night. I actually could see the individual deceased in the passenger seat of the truck. It was horrific. It was something that no law enforcement officer wants to see. And you know, one of the people we forgot to thank were our crime scene investigators. We have to remember that our crime scene investigators now, after today, have gone through 3 of these incidents in the last month and a half. We had a 5-year-old killed at a trailer. We had this young man lose his life for no reason. And this morning we had another child who was struck by gunfire. And the toll it takes on your officers is extensive. These are images that we don't forget. And I could remember every injured child during the course of my career that I went through, like if it was yesterday. So I know our crime scene investigators see it a little bit more because they have to process these scenes. And one crime scene investigator did mention that night that this was a tough scene, but they would get through it. And Deputy Chief Barker did a great job that night of making sure that she offered and was there for them to get them through this tough time.
And just to make sure, Romero and Garley, these are both two suspects from the same incident in regards to 11-year-old.
Yes.
Got it. And then Garley was arrested later on near Grants?
Yes, sir, on I-40.
Okay.
Grants, yes, sir.
Do we know why he was coming, how and why he was coming back from Arizona with this 100,000 pills of fentanyl?
So some of the details of that, the feds are still, us and Homeland Security Investigations are still doing some follow-up on that. But it appears, at least from the information that I have right now, is that him and possibly some other individuals went to the Phoenix area shortly after the shooting, dumped some phones that they had, got new phones, and then this is, I don't remember what day of the shooting was, this 5-6 days later. After about 4 or 5 days, they decided to come back. Mr. Garley, I believe, had one of the things that our officer noticed, besides their stories just not making sense of why they had been in the Phoenix area. Mr. Garley had put makeup over his neck tattoos. Had put makeup cover up his neck tattoos. The officer asked him about it. Said it was some TikTok trend. Didn't exactly. There's some strange TikTok trends, but that one seemed a little fishy. So, anyways, he carried on his investigation and eventually located all the fentanyl pills.
And I'd be willing to say that they're drug dealers. Let's call it. You don't carry 100,000 pills if you're not a drug dealer. It's these individuals that not only are shooting innocent individuals in our community, but they're poisoning several individuals, and we know what the fentanyl epidemic is. And hopefully that we'll be able to get a conviction on the murder charges, and I hope the feds throw the book at him for the narcotics dealing.
This is for both chiefs, with Romero and Garley. Were they taken in without incident?
Yes. Garley was actually in a federal facility, so it was just a matter of picking him up.
Yeah.
And the traffic stop.
Yes, at the initial traffic stop, I don't think there was any particular difficulty or resistance.
No, and Romero, it was very minimal. I believe there was no use of force. There was a few tense moments the detectives relayed to me, but they basically gave up and they were taken into custody.
And Chief Medina, if you could, the details of that night of the shooting outside Estes Park. Both of these suspects were in the same vehicle, the vehicle that you saw the description of. They both fired weapons toward the victim's vehicle. Is that safe to say?
We still need to determine exactly what everybody's role was in this, and that's where the investigation will take us. We do want to remind the public we are still trying to locate that vehicle. We have not recovered the vehicle. We believe the vehicle is owned by Mr. Romero, and that somebody out there knows where he's put it. And there's a good, nice reward. Now that he's in custody, you don't have to worry about him. Just call Crime Stoppers, earn yourself a little bit of income, and let us know where that car's at.
So they are suspects in the Boys' death, but can you confirm that they were both in the vehicle, whether or not they both fired?
Yes, we both believe they were in the vehicle, and as it charges now, they're both being charged with conspiracy to commit murder.
What is the description of the vehicle?
The vehicle was a black Dodge Dakota, Durango SRT. Very unique. Is there a possibility it's changed? It's a possibility the vehicle may be white at this point.
We heard that there may have been ties to gang affiliation among the people involved, the suspects, possibly also the people that they were in this altercation with. Do you have any details on that?
Yes, we do believe that this was gang-related, that they were both members of a gang that broke into subgroups at some point in time.
So subgroups of a gang on opposite sides of this, and they were arguing, was it a
There's some kind of argument. We don't have the exact details. We know there's some kind of altercation that led to this.
And that was inside Isotopes Park?
Inside Isotopes, at the baseball game.
And I believe you said this, forgive me, the Romero arrest was today?
Yes, Romero was just taken into custody about 3 minutes before this press release. We were just waiting for warrants to be signed.
Thank you, Chief.
Now, as far as specific clues, minus the vehicle, was there anything else that pointed to these two individuals?
There's a lot of digital evidence the warrants are currently sealed, but as soon as they're unsealed, people will be able to see the digital evidence that we got. And like Deputy Chief Barker said, our hats off to our digital team. They have been a game changer. You know, along with bringing Commander Vega out of retirement, you know, we recruited Kyle Hartsock from the DA's office. We stole Kyle. He brought over the whole digital team from the DA's office. It was kind of like we got a big shopping spree over there. And the skill set that they've brought to the department has been unreal. And those ladies work every day as hard as they can, and they have helped us break so many cases. And that's just a perfect point in how we got the proper tool. We brought in professional staff. We didn't need sworn officers doing this, and they do a better job than us sworn officers ever did at breaking into digital products and getting us digital evidence.
When was Romero taken into custody?
Just probably honestly 5 minutes before this press release got out, 3 to 5 minutes before. Where? Somewhere in Albuquerque. I just know it was in front of a Allsups is what I was told.
Got it.
The question I have is that, I mean, this kid, well, not a kid, but young adult, is 22 years old. He has a fancy car. He's trafficking drugs with his partners. I mean, that's a lot of illegal drugs and money flowing in. And then we're having these mistaken identities. How difficult is that for the policing to keep that in control?
You know, the most difficult part is generally drug dealers don't stay in jail. It's unfortunate that a lot of times that's not something that's considered the person's a danger to our community. You saw me tweet it last week. I'm still waiting to find out if any of those 6 get held in custody. Unfortunately, Mr. Romero did have a felony warrant out for his arrest, and it was related to narcotics dealings. So I'm not sure if it was a warrant from some kind of preliminary hearing or grand jury indictment or an arrest warrant, or if he failed to appear in court. Do you know, Jordan?
I believe it's a failure to appear.
Failure to appear in court. And once again, you know, we'll just, jump on that bandwagon that there are people who are being released in this community out of custody that shouldn't be. And it's not about blaming the judges. They're following the guidelines that were set by the state legislature. You know, every time I go to Santa Fe, I see people work so hard to create these big, huge omnibus bills that are all watered down and really have no effect. But they get their names in the paper.
And just to confirm, you said Romero had a felony warrant at the time?
Yes.
And did Garley, did he have any form of record, any criminal record?
I don't have that information with me now. Do you, Troy? No, I don't have that information.
In regards to the shooting involving the 7-year-old and the mother shooting the gun in that domestic dispute, do we have a status on the husband or the male that was involved?
I believe the male was going to be booked for domestic violence. Did that occur? Right. Nope, not right now. Still really early. We still got a lot of work to do on that investigation. I don't think they've even approved warrants, so it's very complicated, and we're going to need some time on that one. We'll take one more question, and then we're going to call it.
On this domestic violence case, any idea about what led up to the shooting and where it occurred, inside a house versus outside?
You know, I think all of us have been briefing on this all day. We've been working on this particular case all day. We were hoping to be having this press conference around noon today, but it got pushed all the way till now, and I don't think we've gotten a great update on exactly what's occurred out there. All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening. Good night.